Business One is an intuitive tool for managing your business. We're going to look at SAP Business One's approach to inventory management and how one fictitious transport logistics company uses it to its benefit. OEC Logistics Limited is a company based in Copperbelt province of Zambia, and it is a third-party contractor outsourced by mining companies to provide personnel transportation logistics. It has service level agreements in place and very strict health and safety requirements. With manual paper-based and Excel systems in place, it is very difficult for OEC computers to keep to their promise. There are inefficient inventory management practices in place, costly procurement, and lower trust from their customers. So having implemented Business One, let's take a look at a few ways that OEC staff now manage their inventory. We're inside Business One now, and Jason, who's the procurement manager, would like to take a look at an overview of the inventory in the business. Let's take a look at how it's doing, if there's anything that's still on back order, and if there's anything that we need to do to expedite some of these shipments that are pending. He checks that he's got quite a number of stock on site, and he's got some stock that has been ordered, which is on purchase orders, and some that has been committed for sale to customers or delivery to other branches of the company. You can see the documents that make up these numbers. You can see there's multiple purchase orders, sales orders, and inventory transfers waiting to happen. You can also see a highlighted number there, -303 on the hard hat. And it is quite clear that he is overcommitted to deliver 1,128 of these units to his customers when he doesn't have as many. He then decides that he's going to run a stock audit report to check on a very fast moving item called power steering fluid. And he wants to see what its movement has been like over a period of time. And so he can easily see over the life of this power steering fluid how these deliveries have gone in and out, changing purchase prices in a way that makes it very easy for him to track the history of this item. He further wants to scan over some serial tracked items, which is the tires. He's got some very expensive Michelin tires in his inventory that cost a lot of money, and he wants to see which ones of those tires are still in stock. So he runs the batches and serial stock audit report in order to see this, and he does it specifically for his Kitwe warehouse. Each of those tires is then displayed with its individual serial number. And that means he can issue very specific serial numbered tires to his vehicles. To confirm the regular purchase prices of his items from his most trusted suppliers, he pulls up a price report and can tell straight away what he's supposed to be paying for his items. Jason wants to be a little bit clever and decides to ask the question, who gives us the best purchasing prices for power steering fluid? There's no better place to check this than the last prices report. And so he heads over there, clicks one or two buttons, and voila. Right there in row 7, we can see that vendor code V70,000 gave us the best price at 100 of each on the 15th of August. So who is this vendor V70,000? Drill down with the orange arrow, it's SMD Technologies. What we really ought to do is we ought to set this vendor against our power steering fluid as the regular supplier. How can we do this? Let's open up the item, go to our master data information, and we can set vendor V70,000 as the preferred supplier. That's easy to do. Simply click one or two buttons, select the vendor, and save. The next time the system suggests to replenish the power steering fluid, it's going to automatically suggest that we get it from vendor V70,000, and we can automatically create a purchase order to them at the said price. Yeah, okay, setting prices is easy, but how about getting rid of slow moving items? Stock that has been stagnant for a very long time. How can we do that? Let's use the inactive items list, set a date which becomes an anchor that we're going to use to measure against. And we've got suspension airbags, 500 in stock, that have been very slow moving from vendor V50,000. What can we do with this? So maybe we can set up a campaign, and mark down the price and see if we can sell those off. That optimizes our stock somewhat, correct? Great. Jason wants to transfer some power steering fluid to one of his personal transportation vehicles. So what does he do? He wants to call up the power steering fluid in its master data record. He wants to have a look at what's going on over there, sees how he purchases some of that stock, can remember that preferred supplier where we're supposed to put vendor V70,000. He wants to see how many of these items he's got in stock. Let's go to the stock data page. Look over here, and his multiple warehouses, his different branches have got different requirements for minimum stock. So branches Kitwe, Kalumbila and Lumwana require minimum stock of 1, 2 and 3 respectively. So he wants to go ahead and transfer some of that power steering fluid to his personal transportation vehicles. He uses a stock transfer document to get this done. And you can see in there that these are set as locations. So you can have one or thousands of these vehicles under the same warehouse that you can transfer stock to. So we can account for any inventory that we have transferred to each of those vehicles at any one point. We can essentially stock take any of those personal transportation vehicles. And so he's making this transfer on the behalf of Sophie Klog, his colleague who doesn't have access to the system at all, but at least he wants to keep track of who's doing it. The question you probably have in your head right now is, how can I see what inventory items are in any one of those service vehicles or personnel transportation vehicles? Well, let's use the stock and warehouse report, and Jason decides to run that against the personnel transport warehouse. Very easy. He can see exactly what's in those vehicles, and so he can treat them as warehouses as such. Therefore, with a quick filter, he can restrict his view to inventory that's in fleet number BAA 102. Let's send off this list of inventory items that are in vehicle BAA 102 to somebody who's in a branch office that is responsible for this vehicle and yet doesn't have access to the Business One system. One click of a button enables you to attach that report to an email and send it directly out of Business One. No need to get out of the system. That's going to be great. That is a very productive way of working. What does this report look like? Well, when it gets to Jason's colleague, it's going to look something like this. Easy, let's finalize it, close that off, hit the button, off goes the email. Done. Hey, it's a tough life for Jason, huh? All of this for a few button clicks. Life is hard. So can Jason do anything easier with the time he's got on his hands now that he is a master of button clicks? Well, he's set some minimum stock levels against the power steering fluid. He's updated them. Remember, he's got minimum stock of 1,000 now for Kitwe. Kalumbila is 150 and 3 for Lumwana. The system is going to advise Jason what he needs to reorder so that he can replenish his stock. MRP Wizard comes in very, very handy for this. You only need to run it as often as you need, which is really just periodic. So let's go ahead and look at what Jason's doing over here. He's got a planning horizon of about 6 months to the end of the year. He selects some items that he wants to work with. By looking at the minimum stock levels, the MRP Wizard is going to recommend purchase requests as well as stock transfer requests. All right, with its infinite knowledge, look at how the MRP Wizard is recommending the creation of inventory documents that will bring in 93 additional units for power steering fluid. It's very easy, a few button clicks, right? And if we drill down into that, just have a double click over the number 94 and it tells us the recommendation is a stock transfer here of quantity 1 and some purchase requests in the other warehouses, warehouse 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it would have taken quite a lot for Jason to do this manually. And by hitting the recommendations tab, he gets a detailed view of all the recommendations that are being made by the MRP Wizard for the 3 items that we're seeing on the screen. And so what it is really saying is that if we accept its recommendations, it's going to create all of these documents, stock transfers, purchase requests, to the different warehouses. You see the columns over there with the from and the to warehouse. That is all by recommendation from the wizard. And if you can also see to the left of that is the supplier code column that suggests to us which suppliers to use. Remember how we use the preferred supplier property of the item master data? Well, it's using that setting to suggest which suppliers to mail all of this off to. If we get out of that now and have a look specifically at the recommendations that were created by the wizard a while ago, and now we're going to see that the options are there waiting for us to select which of the recommendations to execute. Right? And if you have a look at that, that's 9 documents that it is suggesting to create. And all you have to do is tick the ones you want to go. You still have the control, you still have the power. You don't have to go with all the recommendations that the wizard is telling you. So Jason then goes ahead and picks one of the recommendations and then uses that to generate a document. He can still do other things like change the quantity that he is ordering and change the supplier that he's going to get this from. And nice and easy, a purchase request gets created, and look there, it's been sent for approval. It hasn't committed it yet, it's sent it off to Jason's manager to approve the purchase request. If we just imagine for a second that we're Jason's manager sitting around in our office on our swivel chair waiting for work to come in, and look, an alert comes into our Business One profile asking us to approve the purchase request coming from Jason. All of this is electronic. Now, his manager doesn't have to be in his building. This could be a different branch, different country. In fact, he could get this alert on his mobile app on his smartphone and do this. He selects to approve the purchase request. Nice one. And then we head back to Jason's profile. He's sitting around waiting for things to happen. Along comes an alert telling him that his manager has approved his document. So he can open it and finally commit it to the system. It's still Jason's job to communicate with the supplier. So he simply goes to his purchase request, copies it to a purchase order, hits the add button, and that's it. The purchase order is created and he can mail it off to the supplier. Again, using the mailing tool that's found in Business One. No need to come out of the system. The most likely scenario would have been that Jason was doing all of this work on behalf of somebody else, maybe somebody who doesn't use the Business One system. So if this was the case, the alert comes in that a purchase order has been created from the purchase request, and this could have gone to that particular employee's email as well as an alert coming into Business One. And what would the purchase order look like when it finally gets to the vendor that's going to sell this power steering fluid? No problem. Hit the PDF button and it generates a PDF version of the purchase order. How neat is this? All of these layouts come as standard with Business One, but it allows the customer to make changes to them. You know, just have those aesthetics that can go with the branding of the business. Now let's fast forward to a time that the supplier has sent the goods back. So they're going to receive this as a goods receipt PO in the system by selecting the specific supplier who's sending the goods, and then selecting copy from purchase orders. And the system is going to look at all the open purchase orders for this vendor. You can see over there 1149, which would have been a number that the vendor quoted on the delivery documents. Select that, not having to retype too many things. The receiving guys then note that the supplier or the vendor has sent one unit less than what we ordered. So they update this, and instead of quantity 41, they specify that they've received 40. No problem. Partial receipts are allowed in Business One, and it will also track everything that is remaining from the purchase order that we've got with this vendor. Again, let's fast forward to somebody else sitting in somebody else's profile. Whoever needs to have known that the goods have arrived gets an alert. Your goods have arrived in a goods received purchase order. So this user can open this document and look at what actually did arrive. So with all of these things going on, with all these documents, how do we know where everything started off from and how far everything has come? Well, it's very easy. In Business One, we can use something called the relationship map. hit that against one of the documents involved, and it draws visually the relationship between all the documents. See, the purchase request created ended up being a purchase order and then a goods receipt PO. Fantastic. If you are alert, you will also notice that there's a column there towards the end of the form that says open quantity, and it's got 1 in it. Remember that we received only 40 of the 41 items that we had ordered. So Business One's keeping a track of all of that. The next time the vendor sends the item, we're expecting him to send only 1 unit from that order, and then that completes and closes off that specific purchase order. Let's dream some more. Imagine further that the vendor has sent his AP invoice to us. All right, the finance guy opens up the AP invoice form, select Far East Imports and says, well, I'm copying from my goods receipts. That means I'm only going to invoice things that I've actually received. Select the specific goods receipt PO, and we expect to see only 40 of those. And look at that kind of control. We're not going to overpay for anything in there. The day is getting hot. Jason's getting confused. So many things that he's done. Well, let me just head back to the relationship map and see how far we've come. Purchase request went to the purchase order, came to the goods receipt, purchase order, and finally is on the AP invoice. And it's got that little red line underneath to indicate that we have not paid this invoice to the supplier yet. There we go. Open it up, and we've got it in our books.